What is microservice architecture? First, let's see what a microservice is. Well, the name explains itself. It's a small service, and as it's small, it's responsible for the small part of the application. Not in a small job, but a small part of the application. They are different. And the microservice architecture is a big group of these microservices. But when to use it, when not to use it, why is it good, why is it not? Well, microservice architecture is a very big concept, and talking about it takes much longer than just 8 minutes. So in this video, in the next couple of minutes, we're just talking about its core concepts. Hey guys, my name is Parsa. Welcome to my channel. Well, I worked as a software engineer for more than 3.5 years right now, 4 years so far. And in this channel, I'm talking about my experiences, and as a part of my experience, I talk about software engineering and system design. You always hear about microservice architecture when you hear about big companies. Companies don't start with microservice architecture. Instead, they start with a big single app called a monolith. The app gets bigger and bigger, the people working on it gets more and more until it's hard to manage. What is the first problem when managing a lot of people? Alignment. Okay, so consider we have a single monolith app which has a code base and there are lots of teams. If 2 teams want to make a change to it, it is so probable that they work on the same place and face conflict. So the more people get independent to each other, the harder the alignment gets. So we need independence. So companies, managers, and technical leaders tend to push these coordination and ownership challenges down to individual teams. How do they do that? How does microservice architecture help them to give teams this ownership? Each team has one or more services and manage them independently, completely under their control. We need it in 3 places. The first place is our data. In microservice architecture, we can make sure that this is only us who can make a change to our data, to our database. The second place is our change to our code base. I mean, if you make a change to your code base, you don't have to inform other teams because your codes don't touch each other. They're not related at all. And the third place is our deployment time. In a microservice architecture, we can deploy our app whenever we want, almost, which leads to independent deployment time and as a result, version update and independent data management. Now the company doesn't have to manage all the details. More people in the company can decide about different things. So until now, we can get that microservice make a company more manageable. But it's not just about the management. Microservice architecture takes a lot of time from engineers, so it should have some technical benefits. So let's talk about that. How does microservice architecture save a company? First off, it removes this scary, terrible single point of failure thing. A lot can happen while deploying an application. Some bug turns out to be missed, network issues may occur. So if you have a big application, you may choose to not experience that on the whole system. In big applications, even like 20 seconds of downtime costs a lot of money. In a microservice architecture, we don't deploy the whole application at once. Instead, we break it down and deploy each microservice on its own timing and order. Some microservices are too critical. If they go down, bad things happen. But still, this architecture reduces that probability a lot. And that remains a small possibility of a critical service going down is managed by engineers. That's the main thing they do. As a result, each microservice has a fault isolation, which is good. It is more scalable. You heard the word scalable everywhere in software engineering. It means that the more resource we give to a system, the more performance we get out of it. You might ask, isn't it always the case? Well, no. You have to do some stuff to make it happen. Based on my own experience from job and university, it can't happen when you have a big component in your architecture. More on that later. In microservice architecture, each new team can create its own services, connect to others, and start. It is more flexible because each team has more control. And as a personal view, it's sometimes easier. As your code base gets bigger, making the change to it gets harder. And in a microservice architecture, we deal with smaller services, which makes it sometimes easy. So if it's this good, why don't we use it all the time? Why don't we start with it? Before answering that, we have a boring call to action. Guys, I really appreciate it if you support my channel. If you could subscribe, that would be amazing. These videos of mine may seem easy to create, but they're not. I put a lot of time and energy on them, and your support gives me the energy to keep creating content like this. And yeah, so why don't we start with it? Wouldn't our application get there eventually, get to a place where its managing is hard? Well, maybe. We can be optimistic. Optimism helps us to do our best, but relying on hope alone isn't a good reason to spend a lot of money upfront. Implementing a microservice architecture is expensive, and I tell you why. Let's talk about challenges of implementing a microservice architecture. Well, first off, we have a lot of services and they have to talk to each other. If we have, for example, 4 microservices, there are 6 possible connections. If it's 10, we have, I think, 45. And if it's 20 microservices, I think we have 190, 200. So the number of possible communications grows exponentially. I talk about this connection in the next part of this video. The next thing is assigning responsibility to each microservice. It is hard and it changes over time. Some random feature gets popular, it gets bigger, it gets more complex, and you have to break it down to other microservices. So there is a danger of changing some rules in your architecture. The next thing, once again, we have a lot of services. So we have a lot of deployments and a lot of risks. So we need a good infrastructure. Kubernetes, so many cloud platforms can play a role here, but still they have to be maintained and they add more complexity. And the last thing is that it is hard to debug, especially for front-end developers. If something doesn't work fine, it's hard to find its source. So front-end developers should know exactly which team they should talk to. So let's wrap it up. Communication, assigning responsibilities to microservices, infrastructure, and debugging challenges. About the means of communication. Well, we have 2 ways. The first one is synchronous, like HTTP, like gRPC. And the second one is asynchronous, like publish and subscribe, like queues. For this type of communication, we have, for example, Kafka, we have RabbitMQ and NATS. I've already talked about these 2 ways of communication in this video. I had a very brief mention to it. Each server which you want to talk to, you have to connect to them in these means through the network. If I want to be honest, implementing microservice architecture has a lot of boring parts. I talked about challenges of implementing it, but challenges may be good. They are thriving, they are inspiring. But in the case of communication, it's not always fun. It's extra work, the things that you do just because they have to get done. And all that extra work add up. A long time, a lot of people who you have to pay, which is why implementing microservice architecture is expensive and why startups don't choose it early on. So let's see a very, very, very simple example of how to think microservice-ly. Where is my marker? So this is a online shop application. Let's draw these borders. So at first, we have a user microservice, which is responsible to handle users. Then we have the inventory class, which tells us about the inventory, updates it, about what stuff is left, what stuff is not. Then between these 2 services, there is an order service, which manages order for each user, and they're connected to each other. Then there's a payment. Payment service tells the order service about whether the payment was successful or not, and if they was or it wasn't, it tells the user to, for example, update its balance. Something like that. But as you might know, Amazon has a lot of features which can't be fit in these 4 items. So let's wrap it up. Companies start small, they grow, more people come until they're hard to be aligned. So the company gives them independence, and since this independence makes implementing it harder, we don't use it all the time. Going a little bit deeper, this alignment is done on a good infrastructure through network. This was all I wanted to say about core concepts of microservice architecture. If you have any questions, please drop it down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like if this video might help you. Be curious and keep learning.